So welcome to this WolfVision webinar about using a visualizer to enhance online learning and web meetings. I'm very glad that you attend this webinar. So I would like to do some sort of housekeeping in advance. So in the next 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to explore various topics, how easy you can introduce live content coming from a visualizer, but we will also have a general look on how you can improve the quality of web meetings and online courses, no matter if this is for business or for distance learning. Good. If you have questions, there is this Q&A button down here. Please ask questions. I will be happy and glad to answer them at the end of my presentation. So as I'm alone today, there is no co-host which can answer that behind the curtain. I will do it at the end and have a look at the questions. And last but not least, this presentation will be recorded. So with the link that you got, you also have the chance to see it at a later stage and to get some details that you probably missed during the presentation. So no big deal regarding that. So then I would suggest we directly jump into the presentation. So, web conferencing was already a hot topic even before the crisis. But as we have also seen, there was a strong interest coming from our customers to integrate popular solutions like Zoom or Teams directly into our sign-up product family. So this showed the interest even a year ago about this. But now the demand for popular web conferencing solutions just exploded. The Corona shutdown in various countries around the world forced us to stay at home and work and learn from there. So when we take a look at these figures, I would say that's pretty impressive because 2 weeks after the pandemic was declared, Zoom, for instance, hit the 3 million downloads a day. But even more impressive, I would say, is the other number that I found out just recently, because during December 2019, there was roughly about 10 million Zoom calls a day. That's just 4 months ago. In March 2020, it was already 200 million per day. And in the meantime, in April, we are talking about 300 million. And I guess there is more to come, because this will remain for the next couple of weeks, maybe months, no one can tell. But this webinar is not about the success of Zoom. They do a great job anyway. This example should just illustrate how essential web conferencing is in the meantime to survive in home office or to achieve distance learning in schools and universities worldwide. So before we go ahead with our presentation, I just want to know from you, what kind of meeting apps do you use at home? So I've prepared a little survey for that. And I just show the survey to you, and I would be glad if I get some feedback from you right at the beginning. So you have a couple of seconds to fulfill that. Don't be shy, just let me know. There is more than one answer possible, as I know from my own experience, depending on what kind of company you're working with, your partners, what they are using, or in school, people are using different apps for different purposes. So my kids, for instance, use Teams for some schools, but they also use more specific education solutions. As I can see, it's not really a big surprise. Zoom followed very close by Teams. A lot of people also use GoToMeeting and WebEx. So 70% already voted. I will give you a few more seconds to make your choice before I'm gonna share the results with you. Good, I stopped the survey and I'm gonna share it with you. So as you can see, 82% of you voted for Zoom, 66% also said they use Teams, And as I mentioned before, GoToMeeting and WebEx are coming quite close. Maybe something else, you use open source solutions like Jitsi, for instance. This is also quite interesting in the meantime. Good. But just because we are using new and fancy web solutions, which let us communicate and collaborate without physical presence, does that also mean communication improved? Well, I have my doubts. The majority of meetings are considered boring, even when we have it physically in a meeting room. Because for a lot of people, PowerPoint is the ultimate tool when it comes to doing a presentation. So no wonder that 95% of all presentations done today are using this software. And according to a survey, which was done in German companies, 84% of all presentations are considered to be drowsy and boring. 30% of the presentations are considered okay, but that means also that 97% of all presentations, no matter if it is online or physically in a meeting room, has room for improvement and sometimes a lot. But what about web meetings and online classes? Well, this is probably even worse, as there are additional challenges, like it's just a talking heads meeting, for instance. That means there is the absence of the majority of body language that I would otherwise offer to you. There is not a lot of interactivity because either we talk or we show some PowerPoint slides. So what else? A specific challenge with web meetings is that most of our communication, human communication, is nonverbal. Of course, you can see the presenter's face in a web meeting and hear the tonality of my voice, but there is a lack of the full experience. And of course, a lot of people are using slides to get their message across, like I do right now. And we all know the quality of slides which are in use for daily meetings, normally crowded with text. But why is text so inferior during a presentation? Primitive men didn't have a written language, or did they? Cave drawings, carvings, hieroglyphs actually were a form of written language that happened to consist of pictures. In fact, the type in this slide consists of dozens of little pictures, letters, numbers, punctuation. That is why the brain takes longer to process text. It has to recognize characteristics of each individual letter before we can decipher a word. And there are old wisdoms like a picture is worth 1,000 words, and this is based on that, for instance. So we have to rethink our approach for a meeting or a presentation or an online class when we do it based on online tools or web meeting tools. In a physical meeting, you battle with the slide next to you. And this is normally overloaded with text, but that's a separate topic I'm not covering today. But in a web meeting or in an online class, you have additional challenges. People can be distracted by a lot of things. Their home environment, their kids, their pets, you name it. But they can also check Facebook or write emails that is not really noticeable for the host. In fact, I cannot cross-check if you just have started the presentation and do something else, writing emails to your coworkers, for instance. In a physical meeting, you would notice if someone is distracted permanently by his smartphone or computer, and you could address that. I mean, how many of you are paying full attention right now, honestly? Not writing emails, checking social media, thinking about getting a cup of coffee or some biscuits. The only thing I can do as a presenter is try to achieve is capturing your audience and keep your attention till the end of my presentation. So this is a famous quote from David Ogilvy from a time that was definitely less hectic than our times. So that means our challenge is even bigger, and we have to ask ourselves how we capture the audience, and even more important, how we keep the attention. What is our fire? That's the big question. Let's have a look at some of the possibilities a visualizer can offer you. Maybe some of you know the book Brain Rules by John Medina. It's really worth reading. Rule number 4 says, we don't pay attention to boring things. What we pay attention to is profoundly influenced by our memory. Experiences we had so far predict when we should paying attention. Culture matters too, of course, whether in business or in school. These differences can greatly affect how an audience perceives a given presentation. We pay attention to things like emotions, threats, sex, for instance. Regardless of who you are, the brain pays a great deal of attention to these questions. Can I eat it, or will it eat me? Can I mate with it? Will it mate with me? And the most important question for you as a presenter is, have I seen it before? If you surprise your audience, you can be sure that you will have their attention. But after a certain amount of time, disappointing to teachers and PowerPoint or keynote presenters around the world, attention drops dramatically. So let me introduce the visualizer to you. Let's have a look at the attention span. So on this axis, we have the attention. And right at the beginning, I have your full attention. But as I mentioned before, this will drop over time. So after a certain amount of time, and this is my attention span, I have to do something emotionally relevant so that I regain your attention. Switching media, for instance, will help me to get your interest once again. And I have a much higher attention then before it starts dropping. So what do you guess is the average attention span? In the book is in the meantime a couple of years old, they talk about 10 minutes, therefore it's the 10 minutes rule. There are newer studies which go down to almost a minute, which is really disappointing, but the evidence for me is that you have to do something at least every 10 minutes to regain people's attention. There can be a change of media, as mentioned before, like with the visualizer, for instance. But I can introduce a survey also, or do a quiz. By doing so, this will help me to keep the people's attention and also reset their attention, which is really important. So that means I can maintain the interest and I can also reset the attention. Another quite important thing that we need to consider is learning styles. They relate how you process new information. Knowing your style and the style of others can improve your communication skills and productivity. There are a lot of theories out there, but like all things pertaining to the human brain, it's complex and there is not only one right answer. What we do know with relative certainty is that all of us have different preferred ways of learning, and we all like to combine different styles. So as a presenter, the big question is, why not offering different sources of information to your audience? I mean, you have the audio anyway, your narration, but introducing pictures or live content from a visualizer would help a lot to digest the information. And this is another point to consider when doing a presentation, that the human brain is incredible at remembering pictures. If information is presented just orally, most people can recall only about 10% of it 10 days later. That's not that impressive, I would say. But if the information is presented visually, most people can recall 35% of it later. That's more than 3 times the retention. But the most astonishing thing is the result of combining the two, and this is really impressive. When information is simultaneously presented orally and visually, recall shoots up to nearly 65%. And the most impressive thing for me is that even a year later, you get a 63% accuracy about how you can recall information. Eyesight is the body's primary sensory input. In fact, half of the brain's resources are devoted to processing vision, for instance. This should come as no surprise. You just consider little children. Their eyes lighten up when they see their mummy's eyes, their mummy faces. Their eyes widen when something catches their attention, and they learn to read by looking at picture books. And it's the same with an adult audience. Props are powerful visual tools as they are tangible and hit people right between the eyes. So what do you think was the reason that Google wanted to show their first Android smartphone live during a presentation by using a WolfVision Visualizer? Because seeing is believing. It left long-lasting impressions. It created long-lasting impressions, and pictures like that we have seen in a lot of various newsletters and press announcements afterwards. There are various tools that you can find in a meeting room and in a classroom, like the good old flip chart, but you also find whiteboards and pinboards, and even the good old overhead projector can be found in a lot of different environments. The big benefit of having traditional presentation aids, like I mentioned before, is that these aids are having some sort of flexibility. Compared to a rather stiff PowerPoint or keynote presentation, the presenter has the chance to highlight ideas spontaneously, summarize feedback from the audience, sketch ideas, for instance. And this helps getting your message across tremendously. These tools can help to improve the in-room experience, but unfortunately, this is not really a choice when doing an online meeting or class, although I know there are whiteboards available, but they offer a different sort of experience to the presenter, and therefore they are not used so much. Live interaction, spontaneity, and excitement are often lacking in online classes, where static presentation of content materials does little to spark the students' imagination. Many WolfVision customers have found, just the last couple of weeks more importantly, they have found that their visualizers successfully introduce a live in-classroom experience with a high-resolution imaging quality and a flexibility to introduce and explain ideas and concepts in a meaningful way, which can be difficult otherwise to accomplish that using an inflexible slide presentation. So that's a big advantage, connecting your visualizer to your computer and using that same experience that you would otherwise offer to your students or coworkers in the classroom or in the meeting room. How information is treated by the brain is based on previous experiences, like we have heard before. If it's already known and expected, most likely the brain will switch to standby mode, avoiding an information overload. If it's new and unexpected, you will have the full attention from your audience. The visualizer can help you achieving this aim and getting your message across. Like I mentioned before, with the visualizer, I can easily change media. And once again, I would like to change media and show you the difference. Because instead of using the slide where I started my presentation, I could also use the newspaper where I was just reading this article in the morning and show my students, for instance, well, that's quite interesting. Let's talk about this today in the online class. This makes room for spontaneity in your presentation. And at the end, this will keep people's attention, but most likely you'll get them really engaged. Another thing is that you can support your message visually. I mean, I can draw certain things like how a sign-up could help me to improve the presentation, for instance. When you introduce visual support, pictures, or the visualizer, you address the right side of the brain. And the right side of the brain is also quite important to create emotions, and emotions will help us to make decisions. So this is quite important to understand. Pictures and visual support reduces also the cognitive load, means getting rid of text and use visual aids instead keeps your audience vital till the end of your presentation. And last but not least, you can start interaction with your audience by taking care about their feedback and developing together maybe an idea and sketch that immediately during the presentation. Books like the back of the napkin make a strong recommendation of using sketches and hand drawing during a presentation to engage with the audience. By the way, that's another book worth reading, I would say. So let's have a look how this is working. We are using a technology which is called UVC. UVC is not a completely new standard. It exists since more than 10 years. And that's also the nice thing. Our entire product range from the V-Solution Cam that I'm using today, all the way up to the high-end models like the VZ9, for instance, they are supporting UVC. And the beauty of UVC is that you don't need to have a specific driver or software installed. Everything that you need is already on board of your operating system. So my MacBook with macOS has the same drivers on board like your Windows laptop with the Microsoft support, or even Linux machines are using that standard. So what is the setup that I'm using? My visualizer is connected through the USB interface directly to my computer. Within fractions of seconds, the computer will notice there is an external camera connected. It will start the respective drivers, and then you can use your third-party software. No matter if this is just a capturing tool, a capturing software, or if you want to do a web conference like Zoom or Teams. Those are the examples that I picked before, but you also showed me during the presentation or during the survey that these are the most used solutions nowadays. That's the only thing I need. And afterwards, you have the flexibility to integrate any sort of analog content. You can use it as a digital whiteboard, for instance, and this gives you so much more flexibility during the presentation. At the end, I would like to encourage you, use it because it's simple and straightforward. Let's have a closer look how this is working on Zoom. As I'm doing my webinar here on Zoom, you have already seen that I was switching permanently between the room camera, my slides, or the WolfVision camera, for instance. So what do I need to get my live image during the webinar here on my screen? Well, I have my share screen button. And with the share screen button, I can not only share PowerPoint or Excel spreadsheets, means digital content which is already on my computer. I can also share content which is coming from an external camera. So instead of going to the basics over here and use some digital content like my PowerPoint presentation, I go to the advanced menu and use an external second camera. And by pressing this button, any content can be shared immediately. As you can see here, once again, I'm on the live content. Within seconds later, I can go back to my PowerPoint presentation. Good. How is this working on Zoom? Well, or how is this working on Teams? I'm sorry for that. Teams also offers a similar possibility, but unfortunately, from my point of view, it's a bit more cumbersome and there are more restrictions compared to what you have just seen before. So instead of having the option integrating a second camera, I need to replace my camera. That means either my audience is seeing the presenter or they are seeing the external camera, which represents the visualizer in my example. So in this lower right area of the picture, you have this camera button. And by pressing this camera button, Teams switches between all the cameras which are available on the computer. So normally this is the room camera, the face camera, and the external camera, the visualizer in this example. And by doing so, you can also easily change between the presenter and the visualizer and integrate, therefore, live content into the presentation. Also, this is quite straightforward, I would say. Frankly speaking, it works pretty much the same with all the other solutions that I know. So what we have seen before during the survey, no matter if this is GoToMeeting or something else, as long as you're able to bring the content on your desktop, you have the possibility to share this content. And once again, this is done by using USB and the UVC driver, which is implemented into the operating system. Therefore, it's really easy and straightforward. So let's have a look at some examples from the recent past. The first example is an example which is really nice from my point of view because my wife is a teacher. She's working in a primary school here in Vorarlberg in Austria. And when the shutdown started here in Austria more than 6 weeks ago, everything came quite unexpected. And the schools were not really prepared to do digital learning, especially not the primary schools. And there is every year the Vorarlberger Reading Day to encourage the pupils to read books at home because this is tremendously important for their future skills when it comes to learning and things like that. So it was quite disappointing that this reading day would be probably not possible. And so I offered my wife to use all the stuff that I had at home, the vSolution Cam, the VSET ADUHD, the Sign App and everything else, to arrange a digital reading day. So we transformed our living room into a studio. I used my MacBook together with the Panopto capturing software to do the recordings. And at the end, my wife was able to do a live session. So the majority of their class was joining the reading day during this live session, but we also uploaded the recording afterwards to Panopto and were able to distribute it with the rest of the class, which was really nice because it showed that you don't need a lot of technology at home. I mean, it's just a webcam, a MacBook, and a webcam, and this was it. But we were able to do this reading day in a full digital way and integrate the pupils which were spread around Vorarlberg. Another quite nice example is from my daughter. Her math teacher was forced to do exam preparation with them over distance. And he had a quite creative way in solving this task. I mean, as you can see here in this before picture, he was using his smartphone, stream content to his computer, and he was using a DIY wooden stand to achieve that, and this was his working stage. So I offered him my VSET A demo unit and showed him that open source software like Open Broadcaster Studio would be an excellent way in doing video tutorials. And he was quite keen trying that out, and this improved the learning quality quite tremendously. The VZ8 4th generation connected through USB to his computer. He used Open Broadcaster software to capture the content in combination also with his narration and the face camera. And he later uploads that to his personal YouTube account, which helped the pupils, like my daughter, tremendously to prepare for their exam, which will be in a few weeks from today's point of view. So this is another quite nice example where I was able, or WolfVision was able to help by just supporting teachers with WolfVision Visualizers. This is another example that we have realized years ago, but this also shows if you invest in earlier stages, how much more flexibility you get. This is an architectural company from Germany, invested a while ago in a ceiling visualizer, and through their video conferencing solution, they were able to integrate partners with the ongoing projects, but they were also able to sell apartments and other things online to their customers during this Corona shutdowns. So these are a couple of examples that I wanted to share with you. Before we come to the end of this presentation, I wanted to highlight that a visualizer helps avoiding an overload of information for the audience. It's very easy to reset the audience attention by changing media and also maintaining the interest by the audience. And by the way, I still see that almost 100% of the people who started the webinar with me are still on board. So this is the proof for me. If you're changing media, and we did that already 3 times within this 30 minutes, you can keep the motivation from people to stay on board, even if you are separated by distance. Beside that, a visualizer will help creating emotions and engaging with the people. And all that can be done spontaneously and without compromising the quality of your presentation, no matter if this is in a meeting room or an online meeting or for distance learning, for instance. Confucius said, "I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand." Right now, the only thing that we can offer through web meetings and distance learning is the part where we hope that you see something and you will remember. It's a little bit more complex to encourage people to do and to understand, but there will be other times in the future, I'm pretty sure. As we are all limited right now, giving the audience the chance of offering a physical meeting and getting the maximum output of meeting time, we should at least strive to maximize the online experience, no matter if this is for business reasons or for education. And this means a strong recommendation, a personal recommendation by me of doing presentations which are rich of visuals like pictures or even live content from a visualizer. As you have seen the visualizer, it is really easy to integrate into popular solutions like Zoom or Teams, and changing media can be done simple and straightforward. So let's make online meetings great again. Last but not least, I would like to recommend more additional food for thought. So my colleague Simon Sprott wrote an inspiring article on LinkedIn, which will give you more specific advice about how to improve online learning by the use of visualizers. On my LinkedIn profile, you can find presentation content and guidelines about improving presentations in general. This is in this featured part down here. And last but not least, I would like to recommend the WolfVision YouTube channel, where you can find a lot of video tutorials on how you maximize the usage of your WolfVision products, no matter if this is for a visualizer sign-up or for our popular software tools. By the way, there will be more content like that and more webinars like that in the future, so stay tuned for this. And as I promised, now we are coming to the question and answer session. So I will open up the questions. Just give me a second to read them. Okay, Bruce is asking that he missed the introduction. Are you sending out a copy of the presentation? No, I mentioned that at the end. So you will find this presentation and other content on my LinkedIn profile. Lasse is asking, which capturing tool for presenting on Zoom do you recommend? As mentioned, you don't need a specific capturing tool. The only thing you need is connecting your visualizer to the computer by using the USB cable. This can be done with all current WolfVision visualizers like the V-Solution Cam, all the way up through the VC3 Neo, the 8 Neo series, the 8 4th generation, the 8 UHD in the future, and the VZ9 4th generation. All of them support UVC. And that means you can integrate this content then directly into the presentation. If you want to do a video tutorial, so that means you capture content on your computer, then at the end, I would recommend Open Broadcaster software, the one from the example that I showed with the math teacher. I'm currently preparing a webinar for that, which will be up and running in probably 3 to 4 weeks. So stay tuned for that. You will get more insights how to capture content on your computer and edit content and do things like that, which is not only for a webinar and the recording, which is more for uploading to YouTube or other educational platforms. Stephen is asking about, can you talk about the networking side of your doc cams and any YouTube streaming side? Well, newer models like the VZ8 UHD have the possibility to stream up to UHD in H.264, H.265, but there is currently no possibility to do that directly on YouTube. Once again, I would like to refer on Open Broadcaster software. With this software, you can not only record it locally on your hard disk, you also have the possibility to stream content directly to YouTube, Twitch, and other popular streaming sessions. So if you're interested about this topic, once again, I would like to recommend you my next webinar, which is probably end of May. And then you will discover more possibilities based on USB and network streaming. Shahadat asked about how you can get your product in Bangladesh and also the support. So this is something where we're gonna follow up later. I will gonna introduce you to my colleague Ronnie, which is working from India and supporting your region. Andreas is asking if he needs to install a driver to use a visualizer with my MacBook. No, as long as this is based on UVC, there is no specific driver. Everything you need is coming with the operating system. And Peter, nice greetings to Sweden, my friend. Is the new VZ8 UHD equipped with UVC today? Well, the current version, firmware version 1.0, has currently no UVC support. I'm sorry for that. But the next firmware release, which is scheduled for end of May, will have the full UVC and USB support. So then you get all the bells and whistles. So I ask you for patience for the next couple of weeks, and we will let you know as long as you're part of the WolfVision newsletters or you follow up or you follow us on the social media. You will get this information when the download is available. I would like to thank you for your interest. I'm looking forward to see you probably in one of my colleagues' webinars. Stay healthy, take care, and hope to gonna see you soon in reality. Thank you very much.